designated. And I think we are waiting for one person who should come. So let's get started. Can we? A chicken and a duck are in the oven. And the duck says to the chicken, "Are you hot?" And the chicken says, "Yeah, I'm roasting. I'm Jewish, so going someplace to slow roast for eternity is not a concept that we embrace." And quite frankly, my father and I have already had our respective asses barbecued. More on my father later. So welcome everybody, welcome to Dixon Place. Thank you for coming. You know, I often think about those deep questions, those sort of Deepak Chopra philosophical kinds of questions that we all do, like, what is the meaning of life? What is my place in the universe? What do I have in common with Carrie Fisher? What? Doesn't everybody ask that? No? Well, let's see. What have I got in common with Carrie Fisher? I once had a picture taken with challah rolls around my ears, but I don't think that counts. But all right. Now, Carrie Fisher, as you know, or may not know, her second husband turned out to be gay. So, like Carrie Fisher, I too married a gay man. Only, for some reason, when Carrie found out that her second husband was a homosexual, they divorced immediately. Now, when I found out my husband was gay, for some reason it helped the marriage. But all right. There is one other little thing that Carrie and I have in common, and that is that we both suffer from mental illness. Now, Carrie and I are both bipolar. In the day, it used to be called manic depressive. But basically, my life has been one incredibly long Dostoevsky novel. You mean he didn't write Anti-Mame? That could explain a lot. But Carrie, by the way, Carrie Fisher is not a friend of mine. I wish you were a friend of mine. But the only thing I really know about her is from her show Wishful Drinking. Has anybody seen Wishful Drinking? Where are you? There you are. All right. What she did in her show is basically bring out her emotional, dysfunctional baggage and entertain people. So I figured if she can do that with her baggage, my steamer trunks ought to be good for a laugh or two. We'll see. Where Carrie and I diverge, because again, I'm not sure she has this, is a little anger problem. The anger problem is called intermittent explosive disorder. So please don't turn on your cell phones because you don't want to see what happens. Intermittent explosive disorder basically is when you have an enormous, violent overreaction to a relatively small stimulus. So for example, you bump into a door. Okay, seemingly innocent accident. When you have IED, it's as if the door bumped into you on purpose. So now the only use that door has is for kindling on a fire. Now, I have never actually... Oh, are you coming for my show? Come on in, I'm marvelous. Come in.
Is this Joseph Huffman?
No, darling, it's more exciting than that. But hurry through.
I wish I were staying.
You see what you're missing?
I'll be back.
All right, now I have punched a few doors in my day, and I've hurt my hand doing it, but never actually gone that far. Basically, there are sort of three little vignettes I can talk about. There are times when I've taken it out on inanimate objects. For example, computers. This woman knows me and how many I've been through. Has anybody, I can't see you guys, has anybody suffered from computer rage? Have you ever wanted to take your computer, just throw it out the window? Well, I found out that term liquid crystal display is true because when my fist met up with that monitor, it was a veritable work of art. I could have sold it at a gallery. Who knew? Then there was a time when I had a boyfriend, I had a boyfriend and he and I were talking and conversation escalated turned into an argument, and I don't know, I threw something across the room, and I stormed out of the house in this big dramatic moment, and I realized I know where the hell the subway was. So, fine, don't stay for my show, I'm happy. Happy, I'm positively gay. And I realized I know where the subway was, so I came back to my now ex-boyfriend's door, and I blocked out his name, probably on purpose. But I knocked on his door and I had to ask for directions, and strangely enough, he was able to tell me where to go to get the subway. But the thing about him was that he told me that his father suffered from an anger problem similar to mine. And I thought, well, you know, then maybe he'd have a little bit more sympathy for me and, you know, kind of... But I figured, well, maybe he just doesn't want to date his dad. This is only water. I'm going to have a little sip. But the pivotal moment came in the year 2000. In the year 2000, I was walking along the Williamsburg Bridge with a friend of mine. My friend is all of 5'0" and I outweigh him by probably 80 pounds, although I have been dieting lately. And it was a gorgeous day, and we were doing in Brooklyn what I love to do best. Leave it. I hate Brooklyn for some reason. So we're walking along, and we're walking along the Williamsburg Bridge. Gorgeous day, a beautiful view, and I'm sort of multitasking. I'm listening to what he's telling me, but I'm also looking at the view. I'm looking, I'm listening, but he misunderstood. He misunderstood me, and we got into a fight, but it escalated. I ended up pummeling him. I jumped on his back, I bashed him with my fist, and I banished him back to the dreaded borough of Brooklyn. The next day, I went to my psychiatrist at the time, and I told him about what happened. And he's listening, and he takes out this little book, and he's reading. And as he's reading to me, my mouth dropped. Because what he's reading to me is every emotion, everything that I was feeling. Small stimulus, big overreaction, and then a release. Oh, as if you've just got done performing at Dixon Place. I'm so glad it's over with. And then remorse. Remorse sets in. Oh God, what did I just do? Who did I hit? Who did I make cry? Was it me? Because you know what? It's always me. I'm the one who gets hurt. No matter what I break, no matter whom I yell at, no matter who doesn't stay for my show, I'm always here. Come on in. I'm wonderful. You're going to enjoy it. And I was astonished. So it's the year 2000, and I'm 36 years old. Don't do the math. I'm 51. But the damage to my life had been done. Because I have a brother and two sisters who I don't speak to, because all they did was sort of see me as Godzilla bashing around Tokyo. And also consequently, I have 9 nieces and nephews. I wish there was a collective noun for that. 2 girls, 7 boys. And I'm not close to them, because their parents, fine, walking through shows, their parents kept me away from them. But I can't blame them. It's just that when I found out, I wanted to explain to them. I wanted to justify my life to them. But have you ever tried to justify your life? Have you ever tried to justify your life to anybody? It's impossible, because they listen and you go on and on and on. This is why I should be here, da da da. They're not listening. They're not listening. What I wanted to tell them, really wanted to tell them, was that, and again, there's also, my siblings tend to be a little Egyptian. They're sort of living in denial. Oh, that was terrible. It really was. Ooh. But my 2 sisters are almost 10 years older than I, so they were already almost out of the house. But my brother remembers. I learned about violent behavior from my dad. Okay, now before things get too weird, and don't worry, they will, I have to tell you about my father. I do. If he were here today, you'd fall in love with him. He was such an elegant, wonderful, crazy, happy guy who did not walk through shows when people were giving performances, but come on through anyway. That's all right, sweetheart. And he had a marvelous sense of humor. For example, when I was a little boy, this is in the late 60s, my father taught me about compassion. He gave me some money and he would say, give this to a homeless person, but look that person in the eye and say, God bless you. You're not just dropping money, you're adding compassion. And in the 1970s, my father had heard about, well, we all heard about in the 70s, this trend called streaking. And for the young man in the house, that's when people used to run around naked in public in order to make a political statement. I'm not making this up, Google it later. My father was not going to be left out of a trend. My father talked my brother and me into streaking around the house with him just to watch my mother scream. It was worth it. It was so worth it. He was a marvelous guy. And you say, well, what do you do? Go find the cure for cancer? Yes, he did. My father was a doctor. He was looking for the cure for cancer. But more than that, what I'm trying to tell you is he had a heart. There was the heart of a human being, a man, a loving, wonderful man under the rubble, under this pile of shit. Okay, here comes the weird part. This same beautiful, wonderful guy was guilty of child abuse. And you're going to be guilty of something if you don't keep walking through. He was guilty of child abuse. I have been shaken, not stirred. I have been thrown into the sides of kitchen counters. I've had my lips split. I've been pummeled. My father is built like me. I am built like him. But when you're 4 and 5 years old, I look a lot bigger. It was very frightening. It was very, very frightening. And my brother, who's only 3 years older than I, remembers, he just doesn't want to talk about it, because there were times that he and I would cling to one another. We would cling to one another because we were so afraid. This 200-plus pound monster is bashing through the house and pummeling. The only thing I could think of to sort of stop the pain was to think, he's going to stop, he's going to stop. He cannot keep up forever. He's going to get tired. And thank God he always did it. It never went on forever. But it went on for the first 14 years of my life. When I was 14, I finally said to my dad, look, I've had enough. I can't stand all this violence. I can't stand getting beaten up. And he knew, he understood, because he never wanted to. He used to tell me I was a little boy, he'd say, okay, you got to keep an eye out. If I start to get angry, you have to remind me. But we didn't know what IED was back then. There was no way to identify it. So, I went to boarding school. I went to a little place in upstate New York, and what do you learn in upstate New York in a boarding school for white boys? You learn how to drink. L'chaim. I met Mr. Jack Daniels. I met Mr. Kool-Aid. They were my teachers for the first 2 years. And in the second year of this rotten boarding school, screw the Kool-Aid, just give me the fucking Jack Daniels. I was dying. By the second year, these are academic years, so I wasn't there in the summer, I had had enough. I wasn't walking through shows with my cell phone on, but that's okay. Nice to see you. By the end of the second academic year, it was apparent that this boarding school is doing nothing for me. So, I went to yet another one. Only this wasn't exactly a boarding school as much as it was, how do I say, a residential psychiatric treatment center. I was in the booby hatch for a little over 2 years, 2 calendar years. I was 16 when I went in, and I was about 18 and a half when I came out. But you know what? Those were actually really good years for me, because I was in an insulated environment in this world that I was living in. If you flipped out, if you went off the deep end, you know what? It was the norm. Everybody was doing it. Big deal. And we were well looked after. We had medication flowing, I'll get to that later, and it was all right. So when I got out of there, oh yes, he says, I must tell you, while I was there, this second boarding school was geographically much closer to where my parents lived. The first place was way in upstate New York near Albany. This place was not too far from Manhattan. Ooh, so after the first year at in the booby hatch, as I call it affectionately, but it was all right. They gave us every weekend status. Every weekend status means after your first year, you get to go home every weekend. On Friday, you're out of there. Check your straitjacket at the door and get on the train. I thought to myself, all right, but do I really want to go home every weekend and risk the wrath of the the wrath of Khan? No. I bypassed my parents' station and I went right into Manhattan, where I found, drumroll, the West Village. Now, it's 1981, and according to the CDC or whatever official reports they are, 1981 is the beginning of GRID, gay-related infectious disease, which became AIDS. It's 1981. I'm raging with hormones. I want to get laid. And now the AIDS crisis. My timing could not have been more perfect. And yet, I did. In 1981, I was walking in the West Village, infamous West Village, and I came upon a church. Get your minds out of the gutter, not what you think. There was a sign on the church, and the sign said, young and gay. And at the time, I was both. I mean, nowadays, at least I'm still gay. There was a group there called Young and Gay for gay teens, and I met a fellow there, all of 19 years old, much older. We became friends, and after a while, you can guess what's building up. We went back to his house, his parents weren't home, and I lost my virginity. Now, you young man. Hello. What is your name? Mark. First time. Was it wonderful? You don't have to give us the gory details, but was it nice? Is it a fond memory? So. But I'll tell you, because I thought it was going to be like fireworks. I was expecting Macy's fireworks, 4th of July, pow, pow, pow. I threw up. I don't know what the hell happened. As soon as it was over, I'm in the bathroom praying to the porcelain goddess and thinking, this can't be so. There has to be more to sex than eating Pepto-Bismol. I mean, this can't be right. I mean, back then there were VHS tapes, and I've seen some of the porn stars, and I thought, what are they doing that I'm not? Don't answer that. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, I said to myself, old girl, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And I did. I found a bar, a gay bar in the West Village called Uncle Charlie's, which became my home away from home. I'm 17. You don't have to be gorgeous. You just have to be 17. I could be had for the price of a ginger ale. Who needs the alcohol? And I met a lot of guys. I did. I met lots of men. And my problem was that I didn't get the hang of this one-night stand business. Because the rule is, you come and you go. That's the rule. But I kept falling in love. I was picking out wallpaper samples and china patterns. There's a song that talks about this. It says, my heart ought to know better and I shouldn't fall in love so fast. I'd sing you the line, but evidently I'd have to pay royalties to the American Society of Publishers and Authors, or whatever it is, ASCAP. That was my fatal flaw. No, not paying ASCAP, but falling in love too fast. I fell in love with everybody I met. But I have to tell you about this one guy, I must, that I met at Uncle Charlie's. He was a big guy, like my dad, And unfortunately, like my father, had a really good right hook. Yes, he beat me up now and again. Now, do we see a pattern emerging? Because this guy and I knew I could say that, were an item that I eventually took back to the returns counter. When things got rough with my dad and I was finally able to, I asked him if I could leave, and it worked out beautifully. When I said to this guy, look, I've had a little too much of getting beaten up, I'm leaving, I thought he was going to get violent. Great minds think alike. Just as he was coming toward me, I grabbed a pole, which we normally use to keep the front door shut. I jammed it into his stomach, I whacked him on the head, and that was it. Out he went.
Good shot.
Yes, I wanted to kill him. No, I did not. But enough of my misspent youth, but the point is I spent my entire adolescence hating my father. Besides whoring around Greenwich Village, I was hating my dad because all I wanted from this man was his love, and I wasn't getting it. So my revenge on him was being aloof. My revenge on him was not coming home for weekends and disappearing, and it was awful. It was awful. But again, the one thing that my father and I are full of, and Christ only knows there are many things, the one thing we're full of is contradictions. Because at the same time I'm hating his guts, there are also so many loving things about him. And so many loving things that I wanted to share with my siblings. But one in particular was, when if we fast forward, I'm in my early 20s, it's 1980 something or other, my father bought me an apartment in Manhattan, because he knew I can't keep a job. I have never been able to keep a job, and I never have enough money. So he bought me an apartment, and he was taking care of me. And he came over to visit one night. And what he did, I was talking to him, and I was saying, I'm really kind of down and out because I don't have a job. And I said to him, why are you spending all this money on me? Why do you keep investing in me? You've spent thousands of dollars on me. Why do you even love me? I couldn't understand it. His response was kissing me on the head and holding me. And that was all he had to say. That was all he had to say. Because I knew in my heart that he loved me and I loved him. But again, it's ridiculous trying to talk to my siblings about it or pass through shows. Why don't you stay? This is fun. Come on! And so I've given up with my siblings. I can't be bothered, and I'm looking forward. All right. There is a beautiful phrase, and the most beautiful phrase, I am not alone. And even in German, ich bin nicht allein. Did I spritz anybody? Das ist Musik auf meinem Ohren. It's music to my ears, because in the year 2001, I met a Swiss-German man. I met him, and God bless him, he has given new meaning to the phrase unconditional love. Because throughout all of my mishigas, throughout all of my craziness, he has been there. He has been there for me. But look, I am not into self-pity. Self-pity is not a phrase in my lexicon. It's just that sometimes I feel like Elaine Stritch. You all know who Elaine Stritch is? She's dead. I'm alive. But Elaine Stritch found out that she was an alcoholic later on in life. She identified it. And I empathized with her because, shit, I was 36 years old by the time I found out intermittent explosive disorder exists. It's treatable. You can get a script for something. It will help. It's unbelievable. So Elaine Stritch had a show called Elaine Stritch at Liberty. And in this show, she came out on stage wearing just a white shirt and tights. Can you imagine me wearing a white shirt and just tights? Hold on, maybe this will help. I'm not kidding.
That's so cool.
About a thing like that. Woo. Just down the back. There we go. Oh, we're going to the dry cleaners. There we go. I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to that.
Elaine Stritch, in her show, gorgeous. It's only one leg as gorgeous as this in all the fresh meadows. It's this leg over here. Does anybody remember Elaine from the 1970s? She did a show called Company.
Yes.
For you young man in the early 1970s, Company, go online and Google it, is a show about relationships. And it talks and centers on this one guy named Bobby and why he doesn't want to commit to a relationship. And it's a whole big long spiel. But it's, you know, there's Patti LuPone did a concert performance of it with Neil Patrick Harris playing heterosexual. There's a stretch. But in Company, there is a famous song called The Ladies Who Lunch. And I'm going to do a little parody of that dear old pickled chestnut. Now here's a little secret, just between us. With parody, you don't have to pay ASCAP royalty. So, you know, make fun of songs if you can't come up with anything else. Now, yes, these are my psych meds, but tonight they're going to be a little maraca. And yes, I have all the rhythm that you would expect from your average Jewish white boy. Sorry, this isn't vodka. All right, my take on that dear old pickled chestnut. Excuse me. Here's to the mentally ill. Onward do we schlep. Having the urge to kill, but keeping it in check. The psychs who dole out the pills to keep us from taking our spills. Medication to help us keep our grip and stop us from taking a Freudian slip. I'll pop one for that. Ooh, and one for Freud. And here's to the ones without meds. See how well they try, knowing that being without means they'll surely die. A toast to that implacable bunch, the ones who take their meds with their lunch. Let's hear it for that whole psycho bunch. Everybody sigh, 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 sigh. Yeah. If Stephen Sondheim was dead, he'd be spinning in his grave. I lost my dad in 2003. 2003, he passed. And when he did, I knew I had lost the dearest friend I'd had in the world. Because despite everything you've heard tonight, or maybe because of everything you've heard tonight, I don't believe that any father and son could have been closer than we, because my heart was beating with his heart underneath the rubble and the shit. The only difference is that now I have gotten the help I need, I recognize the problem, and I keep on keeping on. Amen. Thank you so much for coming.
Bravo.
Okay. House lights.
Well done.
Wow.
Thank you. Oh, I'm gonna get out of these tights.
Reb Noach, the energy is glatt kosher.